So, hello everybody, you're very welcome back to Law Hero. My name is Jen and I make videos about the law and other things. And I'm officially a new mom. My baby will be 3 weeks on Thursday. Today's Monday. And I'm loving it. I like to spend some time on my own in the afternoon, which is now. And I really wanted to get back to Law Hero, and yeah, I feel completely different since I've given birth to CJ. I feel like a different person altogether, and I feel like I have way more confidence in my convictions, I have way more confidence in my opinions, and I just have a different respect for myself, and I don't feel any way embarrassed to say that I have a better relationship with myself since I've gone through the pregnancy. And just have a newfound respect for anyone who, mothers and fathers who have children, because it is very demanding physically, emotionally, mentally, all of that. So without further ado, I'm going to talk about status anxiety, because it's now that I am on maternity leave until January, so of a good 7 months, I am reinventing myself in that I'm a lawyer. I'm used to going to work every day, working from home every day. Now I have to adjust my expectations for myself. And it made me consider status anxiety in that, who am I? What is my identity? For you as well, who are you? What is your identity? And it's difficult because there's different times in our life where, for example, for me during pregnancy, I couldn't really do sport to the level I'm used to doing it to. Right now I can't work because I have a baby, and when I go back to work I'll be expected to be full on and not be fluffy, nice, motherly Jen. I'll be expected to be badass lawyer Jen. And it's all of these milestones which we have to strive to in life, and I think a lot of the time you worry, am I doing enough? Am I achieving enough? Or am I doing all of this and am I even happy at the end of the day? All of these questions. So that's what I wanted to discuss today, because I'm a big fan of Alain de Botton from the School of Life, and his book called Status Anxiety from 2004, which I actually read recently, and it just gave me a lot of comfort, and I wanted to share that with you. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So if you're an A-type personality like me, you've definitely felt the fear of failing. And it's not necessarily the fear of failing yourself, but it's the fear of failing others. I would say definitely in the postpartum realm, when people come to your house and visit, there's certainly a pressure. I know I'm putting it on myself, but to make it look like everything's put together. The midwives do, they give you 5 minutes notice that they're coming to your house, and you're mortified if the dog has just got sick or you haven't packed the dishwasher. And it's all this. The reason I say status anxiety is because we want to look a certain way to other people. We want to portray a certain image to other people, and the reason is because we want to maintain a certain hierarchy that we have, espoused for ourselves. And once we've decided that that is what our status is in society, we work extra hard to keep up with that. And that's what I want to talk about today. So the thing is, society always looks towards, the upward mobility. Nobody wants to be a loser. Nobody wants to be a down and out. Nobody wants to go downward in mobility. Everybody wants to move upward. You want to make more money. You want to have a better spouse, you want to have a better job, a better car, a better house. We want to have more rooms. I have a 3-bedroom house, but I'm looking forward to the day where I have a 4 or 5 bedroom house. It's natural, we all want more, and that's why we're at the top of the food chain. But I suppose what happens when it becomes debilitating, what happens when it just sucks the enjoyment out of life, because you cannot just be in the moment. You cannot enjoy your new baby. You cannot enjoy your new job, because your eye is always on the next thing. That is what I want to talk about today. Right, so I've gone to the liberty of actually getting the definition of status anxiety from Alain de Botton's book, and this is what it is. All right, I'm going to put it up on the screen. It's a worry so pernicious as to be capable of ruining extended stretches of our lives, about our place in the world, about whether we're going to rise or fall in the social hierarchy, about whether we're going to be winners or losers, respected or humiliated. It's the emotional and psychological discomfort that arise from perceived differences in social standing. And it's not factual deprivation. It's all based on your subjective or the lens which you see the world, your perception. So, for example, you could be on 150 grand, we'll say, as a young starter, a trainee, or somebody who's like in their 20s. Proportionately, that's a lot of money for someone who's starting off. And you still might feel like a failure if all of your friends are on 300 grand. But relative to your parents, you're actually making a lot of money. It's all about your perception. And the problem with modern society is that in comparison to previous times, like there would have been like a caste system or a hierarchy set in stone. So for example, if you think of like an aristocracy or a class-based system, it was set out for you. It was a predetermined or a foregone conclusion. And it was easier not to dream because you knew you were stuck where you were. There was no upward mobility. But the hope of upward mobility has given people status anxiety, and I find this fascinating. I was only talking yesterday with my family, and we were saying that like the rags to riches becoming a millionaire thing, I personally believe that is no longer possible because of the advent of AI. Everybody wants to be self-employed now, and it's like everyone's caught on to it, and the only way to be rich now is to come from wealth, I think. And so it's almost reverted back to what it was in the aristocrat days. It's the old money days. The new money days seem to be kind of gone. When you hear of Nepo babies and you hear of people giving money to their kids, I feel like that is coming back. So this, if you think of the American dream and it's like the hope or the chance that you could make it, that is an illusion. That is gone. And like if you watch the Boston bombings, marathon bombings, like that's exactly, apart from being Muslim and apart from having anti-American sentiment, those bombers, they did believe in the American dream and the illusion of it, and it didn't materialize. And I think a lot of people are told that they can do or have anything they want if they work hard enough. They work hard and it doesn't materialize. I think that is what contributes to status anxiety. It's you're out of touch with reality. So if you ever listen to Alain de Botton, when he talks about history, he talks about how the rise of meritocracy is one of the main causes of status anxiety. And he talks about, very interestingly, fortune and fortune favouring the brave. So in simpler times, if somebody fell out of fortune, people wouldn't blame that person. They would say, oh, fortune wasn't good to them. And you had the Roman goddess Fortuna. A lot of people said fortune didn't favour you. And it was almost like, well, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't a meritocracy. You just fell on hard times and people gave you a pass. Nowadays, if you fall on hard times, nobody looks at the elasticity of your life. Nobody looks at the facts of your life. People just call you a loser because it's like, well, the world's your oyster. You can do anything. And of course, that's not true. If you look at like third world countries, they can't just think their way out of poverty. That's impossible. So this kind of like, Rhonda Byrne's secret and, manifesting your destiny, all of that is horse manure, because you cannot think yourself out of poverty. You cannot think yourself into greatness. There needs to be a certain structure there, economic, social and cultural, political even, to get you where you want to be. Using myself as an example, I needed a certain amount of finance to get into law. Once I got in, it snowballed. I was able to accumulate wealth, and then to buy a house, I met somebody who was at and around as the same economic status as I was, so we can afford a mortgage in a place that socio-economic background will ensure that our children are educated and can go on and get a job. That it's a socio-structural thing. It's nothing to do with luck. It has to do with the building blocks of, wealth and family and all of that, and education. So yeah, we now live in a meritocracy, and that's quite dangerous, because if you're a loser, you get blamed, and if you're a winner, you get applauded. This moralizing of success and failure means that we don't just fear poverty, we think it's shameful. And if you're not thriving, people might assume you're not trying hard enough. You become not just unlucky, but unworthy. And this makes failure deeply personal, not just economic. Meritocracy is psychologically brutal on people. And it's a little bit like, I think it was last year, I made a video called The Achievement Society. It was a Korean German author. I think it was, I can't remember his second name. But we have now become servant and master. Because of a meritocracy, we work ourselves into the ground. Like, look at me today. I'm on maternity leave. I'm making videos because I need to feel productive in order to feel like myself. I see myself as a productive person. Therefore, for me, productivity is espousing ideas, even if it's on YouTube, but it's for myself. For me to be productive, I have to think out loud. And nobody's forcing me to do this. This is for myself. But that has come from somewhere. That need to feel productive has come from how I was reared. Yeah. I am also very much aware that I am on the hamster wheel as well, but I'm okay with it. It doesn't cause me anxiety. It actually brings me a lot of happiness. The problem is, though, that when we have status anxiety and when we scroll on social media, we get a lot of envy because people have what we don't have. So you envy the people who are closest to you, right? So you rarely envy like big celebrity superstar. You envy your neighbor because, like, I'm looking at my neighbor. He has a sauna on his rooftop. I'm slightly envious of that. Not massively envious because I'm like, who'd clean it? But I am slightly envious because it's bougie and it's a flex, and it means, like, it's a status symbol to have a sauna on your rooftop. Now, I'm not so envious of him that, like, I'm gonna ignore him when I see him, but I have slight envy because I'm like, I recognize that from a status and economic perspective, he is above me in the totem pole. I just have to be okay with that. There's nothing I can do. It's a meritocracy. And this is the thing. Envy thrives in societies where we are encouraged to compare ourselves to our peers. Social media supercharges this because we have exposure to more people than ever. And envy is not just painful, it's disorientating because it distracts us from ourselves. We're constantly looking at other people and trying to keep up with the Joneses. So then why are we so unhappy with social comparison? Is it not useful? Is it not there to make us better? Well, Rousseau, if you remember in Lost, there was a character called Rousseau. He argued that the birth of inequality came not from property itself, but from the moment one person said to another, I am better than you, Once status became a public contest, human beings were doomed to live in the shadow of others' opinions. Once their basic needs are met, the craving for status, for being seen, takes over. And this craving, unlike hunger or thirst, is never truly quenched. So maybe this is the reason why we are never happy. We're never happy by the next job, the next spouse, the next item of clothing, the next whatever, because it's this hedonistic treadmill that is what makes human beings very powerful, but it means we can never be happy with what we have. Maybe this is it. And this is actually one of the reasons why a lot of people think that our generation is the unhappiest, because of social media has supercharged comparison. So Alain de Botton argues that status anxiety is a craving for love, which is quite interesting. We don't just want money or prestige for its own sake. We want the admiration and approval they seem to guarantee. And this comes back to my preliminary point, which was, if I remember, the fear of failing in others' eyes. We want to be noticed, we want to be respected, we want to be loved. We don't want to be overlooked as a nobody or a loser. Every adult life could be said to be defined by two great love stories. The first is the story of our quest for sexual love. The second is the story of our quest for love from the world. Like, I think that is really, really profound, because if you think about it, that's what's driving everything. If you think of like ego and why people behave the way they do, they want the world to love them. And that's why they're behaving like they do. The tragedy is that the second story often runs quietly in the background, shaping our moods, decision, and even our sense of self without us fully realizing it. If our quest for status is really about love, then its antidote must involve rethinking what makes someone worthy of affection and respect. Can we admire someone for being wise rather than wealthy, compassionate rather than famous? And this is why I was reading, I think it was on Kindle Unlimited, that the world is a cosmic joke. You'll laugh because it's so simple. That when we're constantly looking outside of ourselves, we'll never be happy. That once we start to look inward and read our own book and know who we are, that's when we truly become happy, because then we're not looking for external validation. Then we're not looking for that sexual love or that love from other people. We have love for ourselves. Easier said than done. I definitely didn't love myself till I was in my 30s. What is the cure for status anxiety? A bit like I just said, looking inward and not looking for external validation. That's easier said than done. The funny thing is that people who so I think this might be I think spirituality has a big role to play. So I'm saying spirituality is an umbrella term, not religion. And the reason I say this is because obviously I'm not religious, but I am a Stoic, and I believe in what I can control. I can't control other people. I can't control other people's opinion. I can't control how many people are going to watch my videos. I also don't care. What matters to me is that I sleep well at night and that I'm a virtuous person. I have wisdom, courage, temperance, justice, courage, temperance. And then when it comes to religion, I don't know. I can't remember where I read it or where I heard it, but I think it was a statistic, or it was a study done, that people who are religious, and it comes back to that piece around fortune, that they say things like it's in God's plan or it's in God's hand. They outsource outcomes to a higher power, which means it's not their fault if it goes right or wrong. It's in the hands of a higher power, which is kind of like not trying to control external validation. And that is why, particularly sports people who are religious, and when they fail, they take it very well, because they are, I suppose they're not worried that they had any input into the outcome. They just say it was a higher power, and that puts them at peace, for example. I think the easiest thing to do in your everyday life is when you're striving for something or you're doing something and you're feeling overwhelmed. One good question to ask yourself is, who am I doing this for? Am I trying to impress somebody else? That is a question I often ask when I'm coaching people who want to be lawyers. I'm like, who are you doing this for? And you would be surprised, a lot of the time they're doing it for parents, or they're doing it to impress other people, and they're absolutely miserable in the process. Or as Bhutan says, the best way to calm status anxiety may be to make a conscious decision to question the dominant values of one's own society. This doesn't mean withdrawing from the world. It means engaging with it more thoughtfully, deciding what truly matters, and learning slowly to live by that. And I echo that as well. And I think that's why critical thinking and critical analysis is really, really important, especially when it comes to how you spend your money, because obviously social media is set up to get you to spend money. And when you see other people with like a lot of consumerism and whatnot, that can also lead to status anxiety, and you can put yourself into debt to try and be like those other people. So if you're critical of what you're consuming, and you ask yourself, what is driving me to make this decision? That might a lot of the time reveal itself to be that you are a slave to other people. And yeah, ask yourself, what is driving your behavior? I hope you enjoyed that video. I think status anxiety is super interesting, and I think it's certainly got worse in the last 50 years. And I think it is up to us to be slow and deliberate and critical, and think about why we do things, what comes from our childhood, what comes from our beliefs, what is coming from what we consume. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.